Good afternoon, everyone, and it's such a pleasure to be with you. I'm Deborah Roberts, and I am thrilled to be here with this amazing group of women as we all think about and dream about the beloved Broadway that we all miss so much and begin to think about what it's going to be like when we sit back inside those theater seats. So much has changed, as we all know, over the last year during the pandemic. So much of it heartbreaking, but in some cases, too, some opportunities for change and for hope. There's been a lot of talk over the last year about specifically equality and inclusion. Many would say, of course, that they've been preaching this sermon for a very long time, but maybe, just maybe right now, a lot of hearts and minds are open to conversations. Maybe people are starting to talk a little bit. So we thought this was a great background to talk about women on Broadway and to just include some amazing voices here for us to talk to. So without further ado, let me introduce this great panel that I have an opportunity to talk with. First, Aletha Stevens. She is Chief Operating Officer at Spotco, the world's leading full-service advertising, marketing, and branding agency. She has a huge resume, as everybody here does, but I'm happy to say she is the highest ranking person of color in the theatrical advertising industry. And she has a roster of work that we will talk about a little bit later. Great to see you, Aletha.
Thank you.
Oh, of course. Also, Aaliyah Jones-Harvey, who has she's part of a company called Front Row Productions, and they have just seen a revival of an amazing number of classic shows: Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, A Streetcar Named Desire, Trip to Bountiful with the fabulous Cicely Tyson, which I had an opportunity to see. She also teaches a course entitled Producing for Broadway at the City College School of Continuing and Professional Studies. And with her partner, Stephen Bird, of course, they're just sort of burning up Broadway. And when it starts again, we expect a lot of great things from them. Welcome to you, Aaliyah. Also with us is, of course, Maria Manuela Goyanes. She's the artistic director of Woolly Mammoth Theater Company. She also has done a lot of work. She also was with the Public Theater, and she oversaw this little musical that you may not have heard of called Hamilton, among so many others. She was a part of. She has held a position on adjunct faculty at Juilliard and curated the junior year curriculum of the Playwrights Horizons Theater School at NYU. She's been awarded the prestigious Bold Theater Women's Leadership Circle grant. Just so much in her resume as well. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great to be here.
Of course, Tali Pellman, Group Creative Director for Stage Entertainment. She is following a decade of producing on the West End on Broadway. She has produced independently and for the Ambassador Theater Group a number of shows that you would have heard of: Oliver, award winner for Best New Play, The Mountaintop, so many others. And she's currently a board member of the Stage One Council. Welcome, Tali. And finally, but not least, is Eva Price. She's a 3-time Tony Award winner as a producer, NYCLU, ACLU honoree, and a Crain's 2020 Notable LGBTQ Leaders and Executives honoree. She's got credits that include Oklahoma, Tina Turner, What the Constitution Means to Me, with my friend Diana Demina. And so many others. So welcome to all of you. It's so great to have you here. And if I got any of your productions wrong, you can correct me in just a second. Such a thrill to talk to you. Aletha, maybe I'll start off with you just because I'm looking at you right at this moment. I started off by saying so much has changed, and there's talk now of more change, of course, and conversation. Do you believe that we are at a point now? Because there has been a lot of work done, but a lot of work to go when it comes to women on Broadway. Do you think people are open now is this a moment?
This is definitely a moment. All of the feedback and actions that I've seen so far have proven that people are open and willing to accept change and work towards change. I appreciate that. I love that. A lot of work has been done so far, but we have much further to go. We didn't get here overnight, so it's going to take us much longer to get out of here. So I'm happy to be a part of it. So as long as we all do our work, we'll get to where we need to be.
Yeah, get where we need to be. Aaliyah, you mentioned that this is you call this an intermission right now, which is a great theater term for this time that we're in. Let's talk a little bit about the role of women right now and the situation with women on Broadway. I mean, you are one of a production duo here who has had some great success with bringing some revival of a bunch of plays. But let's talk about the state right now of women on Broadway and women producers and women with power, not just on the stage, but women behind the scenes. Give us a sense of where we are in terms of looking at where we need to be.
Well, I think that we have an opportunity to definitely increase the ranks of women that are leading productions on Broadway. And what better time than now for us to be considering this kind of effort as we look at what will usher Broadway back in. I mean, this is the longest period of non-performance in the history of Broadway. And so I see it as an opportunity for us to begin to shepherd in the new voices. I guess that I've been a part of a conversation as only the second African-American woman to lead produce on Broadway in the history of its existence. And in the history of Broadway. The only other woman that I've found in all of my research that has lead produced a show on Broadway was Camille Cosby, and that was Having Her Say, and that was over 30 years ago. And the conversation that I've been in is been one of how to encourage women that are on the verge. And I say on the verge because I feel like there's so many people that have been circling this opportunity and that have been working towards getting this opportunity to be leaders on Broadway, to bring the shows that they've been championing regionally to the first class stage. And so I think that this is a moment that we, as the Broadway community, have to invest in these kinds of shows that are helmed by women, that are helmed by women of color. And so I think that it's an exciting time for us to be very intentional in seeking out this kind of work to bring to Broadway's stages.
Maria, if I look at all of you, I think about, somebody said the other day, I can sort of see glass around all of you because you all have been shattering sort of that glass ceiling in a lot of ways, but clearly not enough. There's not enough glass around you. Give me a sense of where you think, we have to know where we are to know where we're going and how far we want to go. How frustrating has it been as a woman trying to make it in this industry that has been largely male for so long?
Yeah, largely male and largely white. There's no... It's super frustrating. I actually, for the young producers who worked with me at the Public before I left, I got them a little locket of glass that was broken so they could actually hold on to it.
I love that.
Issue, right? I see this also in my theater in Washington, D.C., Woolly Mammoths in Washington, D.C. And look, we're about to produce the first Indigenous artist, female artist ever. At Woolly Mammoth Theater Company. Has that happened on Broadway? I haven't done my research. I'm very curious about that. When I think about Latinx representation, I don't know where that is. And I think that as Aaliyah, you said so beautifully, it's about opportunity. I just want to be really clear. This is not a pipeline issue. The people exist. It is about opportunity. It is about taking the leap. It is about actually opening the door and keeping the door open. There was something that Marsha Norman, who obviously opened the door for so many women on Broadway, there's no question about it. But one of the things that she said to me once was she said, I didn't realize it was going to slam shut behind me.
Oh.
And I just thought to myself it sank into my stomach, is that actually there's not going to be a moment in this work, I think, that we don't actually have to just muscle that door and keep that door open, because unfortunately the systems that exist are actually always going to default to white and male a lot of the time. That's just going to be the case. And if we're not intentional about it, then that's the default. And that's the thing that makes me so frustrated, is that, you know, it takes a lot of effort and intentionality, and it doesn't ever feel done.
Right. I totally agree with you. Eva, I see you nodding your head furiously there. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think a piece of it is also, which as content curators, we have the power. It's about the content, right? It's, you know, so often the same shows are produced on Broadway. So they're therefore directed by the same types of people, and therefore they're written by the same types of artists, and therefore they're produced by the same types of producers. And if we don't want that to be the norm, then we need to explode the norm. We need to break the box. We need to provide a system that allows for new work, different work, diverse work with diverse reimaginings. If that's what we need to do, we need to think consciously about how we cast and why and how we need to explode the norm, who's in the shows and what they look like and what they represent. We have to think about representation for what's on the stage. And as a producer, you know, I think a lot about the work I want to see, and that is different. That isn't just a white male directed, starring, produced, written by you know, Tennessee Williams, right? You know, it's other things, it's other stories, it's other people, it's other voices being heard and being seen. So, you know, that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what my goals include. And that's what I'm hopeful for in the future.
Tali, what does true equality and inclusion look like to you as we're going forward on Broadway? Or just in theater in general?
I think it's a great question. I think you mentioned in the beginning that there's been so much conversation, right? And how do we start to translate that to legacy and to action and to the future? And I think when we envision what we're coming back to, and indeed, you know, Daniel J. Watts, who's in our company of Tina, often talks about coming forward as opposed to coming back, because we have to come back to a different landscape. We really have to see that there's been a shift by the time Broadway reopens. I think that's critical. And I think trust is huge. You know, it's very basic. It's a foundation. I agree with Aletha that there has been a fissure, and it's, I don't think there's any going back. And I think it's a rare opportunity and a moment. And I think we all have to work very hard to earn a trust, because there has been an openness in conversation. And I think in conversations I've been in, whether it's with individuals, company members, significant organizations, theater owners, I mean, independent producers, many people on this panel, you know, there is a real honesty to the status quo and where we want to go. And I think we have to continue to live that when we come back, because we're all so busy working towards the relaunch of our business, right? It's absolutely critical, not just for us, but for our workforce. But it's also the greatest threat to this work, because when things start to get busy, you know, it's very easy to slip into, you know, what needs to get done. And the most extraordinary thing with this pandemic, you know, beyond its devastation, we've had a moment to reckon. And we can't lose that reckoning when business is open. So I think the more we can do now to see change, the more likely we are to re-enter business with, you know, a culture of trust and honesty. Because none of us are going to be perfect, no matter how much, you know, we have the will to change and improve. You know, I'm pretty much resigned that I'm going to make a massive blunder at some point. I mean, it's happened today with, you know, no.
It's happening today really just on being virtual. Yeah.
But, it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. I mean, you have to resign. I have to, as a white woman, resign myself to it, you know, and not allow that fear coupled with guilt to stop action.
You all are talking about reimagining, and please don't hesitate to jump in if any of you want to add something to what someone else has said. You all talked about reimagining Broadway. Aaliyah, you have shown what it's like to reimagine. You and your partner have broken down barriers and reimagining, you know, some classics with people of color in the cast as opposed to the way we've traditionally seen them. How much are you worried? You were kind of on a real roll there too in showing us what reimagination is like. And now we've had this intermission. How much ground do you worry that we've lost, and how hard will that be to try to make that up as we try to go back into theaters and mostly worry about just filling theaters and getting people going again?
Well, I think that's an interesting question, because I'm kind of in a place where I feel like that fissure has created an opportunity to go in new directions. The last play that we lead produced was Eclipsed. It was our first opportunity to do new work on Broadway, and it was challenging work. It was outside of the mold of what theater had ever been imagined to be before, and I feel like that's our opportunity. And some of the work that I even saw, right before we shut down, was incredibly challenging, new, exciting work that was brought to the stage. And I think that that's the direction that we're going in now. And so the idea of recapturing the audiences that we spent so much effort building will be around this new thing. So it won't be so much come back, we have what you remember, as much as come back to see what's new, come back to see where we are now, come back to see how we've grown, come back to see how we've reimagined this place. And so that's what I'm kind of excited about, that it won't be as much a revival as it is something new.
Yeah, it's got to be something new. Aletha, you were nodding your head there, and I'm sort of wondering, because when we talk about women and women having an impact, right? And, for women to reach parity, and there's been a lot of talk about women losing ground right now during this pandemic in lots of other industries. What kinds of steps can women take? And I'd like to mention this to you, and then Maria, if you want to jump in as well, what kinds of steps can women take to kind of transform the industry, just sort of, on your own, to sort of make some steps forward?
Absolutely, Deborah. I think there's so much that could be done. One thing that I participated in was joining certain groups. So becoming members of groups that are already doing the work, like the Women of Color in the Arts, Broadway Women's Alliance. There's so many different groups that I'm not even mentioning right now that exist in our space. And joining those groups and making sure that you're being a part of the solution. And they are doing so many different things, from mentoring the youth to helping create employee resource groups at companies, like outside of the producing world, because when we think about the shift that has to happen in this industry, it's not just on the producing front. Obviously, I love the producers, and you all are making my world possible. So thank you for all that you do. But there's a whole, other world within this business that exists. And, we have to think about the behind the scenes, behind the stage, in front of the stage. We have to think about our audience development. There's so many different areas that we have to do the work in, all at the same time. There's so many groups that have been formed throughout this process. And I think, getting involved in one of those groups would be a great step. Also making sure that you are one of the people that are opening doors for people behind you. I know that Maria had mentioned earlier, that she was told, they were shocked when the door shut behind them. And I think about climbing to the top and getting to where I am today and being a part of the 3%, and how excited I was to be a part of the 3%. And I had a quick goal shift, because I was like, hold on, mama, we made it, we're here, but I don't want to be part of the 3% anymore. Like, I don't want to be in this
just
world.
3%.
Right. I want to be in a world where I can see myself reflected in front of me, right? In so many different ways, shapes, and forms, with women, with women of color, so on and so forth. So I just think about all the work that we do on a daily basis in our separate areas, and being able to continue to work on all of those areas at the same exact time will show growth across the entire industry.
When you say 3%, explain to folks out there, are you saying just 3% of women in a certain, people in a certain part of theater are represented by women?
Yes, so there's 3% of women in that are women of color in a C-suite position in the world. 3%, 3%. And that's not going to work, because we are women, and women have proven to be amazing leaders. Our leadership is necessary to our growth. And that's countrywide, not just specific to our industry. And so we have a lot of work to do on that front. And like I said, I don't want to be part of the 3% anymore. I want to see myself reflected in front of me in the boardroom, on the stage, in different meetings throughout the industry.
Where the real power is. Maria?
Yeah, talk about power. So I'm really looking forward to a shared analysis around power and power dynamics in our industry. I actually think that is part of what is happening in this, is like we're actually having some conversations around that we actually haven't had and are starting to really sort of dig into. And that shift is actually starting because of that 3%, because that was 2%, that was 1%. It's starting to happen certainly in the regional theater, because now there are a lot more people of color who are actually running regional theaters. It's not a ton. It's not a lot, but we got a text chain going, and we talk to each other all the time about how to actually disrupt, dismantle, and remake a lot of these things. So that question about what it is that folks can do, I just want to uplift what it is that Aletha was saying about getting involved in advocacy. There is positional power that we have on this, call, and folks have that in lots of different ways, right? So I want to sort of bring up and amplify the Sea Lighting Foundation, was around immigrant artists, started by a woman who is thinking about how to actually deal with the pandemic and immigrant designers in particular, and how to actually sort of help them survive through this. I want to sort of bring up Time's Up and Affect, our Artists for Economic Transparency, Calling Up Justice, all these amazing groups that are that actually need people, right? Many hands make light work. Be one of those many hands, so that it can be the light work to get to the place where we get to 4%, 5%, 6%, and more.
Right. And it's one thing to talk about change and to do that, but then you have to think about how you measure it. And I'm wondering, are there mile markers? I mean, is there a way? I mean, Tali or Eva, either one of you can jump in if you'd like. Are there ways to maybe even have mile markers to make sure there's accountability?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it starts with data, right? And we see that from some key organizations, Black-led organizations on Broadway like BTC. We really need to know what is this, let's call this the fissure moment. We need to know what is the status quo, right? Where are we now? And only then will we be able to measure where we can get to. And Ali, I remember we had this conversation some time ago about targets, and we have to get really comfortable in the discomfort of targets and start talking about them, because that is what has made the difference. Aletha talking about women in the C-suite, and we need to, set other targets. So I think that's something that is less talked about in the industry. I think it's something that has to be talked about, especially when we're talking about, the workforce that is in the office, that is not just on stage or backstage, and also the workforce we can impact, right? Who can we hire, and what kind of decisions are we making there? I mean, one framework that I think is really, really interesting, and I am digging deep into to see if there's a way we can use this framework, is derives from the BFI, the British Film Institute, and it's called the Diversity Standards Framework. And it really sets out, it's a very practical and flexible framework where you have to seed inclusion in your productions in many different facets, whether it's workforce, whether it's the narratives and the themes, Ava, you were mentioning we're putting on stage, beyond the people who are on stage, what industry access are we providing? What education initiatives are providing? It can't just be the purview of subsidized venues anymore. We have to put these as lines in our production budgets, because unless we have that mandate, put a budget to it, and it's not an add-on, it's just part of how we work, I don't see our language, converting into change.
And we've heard women in Hollywood talking about writers and things like that. I'd like to, because you all are very big forces and forces of power, but there are a lot of women out there who are watching you right now who haven't hit that point yet. And I'm curious what advice you might give. Let's be honest. Women, for the most part, certainly when I was growing up, you're kind of socialized to sort of keep everything kind of diplomatic and nice and, not too assertive in some ways. Can you all offer some advice? Eva, I don't know if you want to jump in here, offer some advice to young women out there in this world of in the industry who maybe aren't quite sure how to assert themselves to get what they want in this industry?
I love this question, Deborah. My first lead producing on Broadway. I think I was 32 years old.
Young.
And it was young. It was really young. And
Yeah.
it took a lot for me to have the confidence to option that show and raise that money and raise my hand to say, I'm worth it. I can do this. Believe in me, believe in my show. And consistently, I've sat in a lot of those boardrooms looking very different than everyone else in that room because they've mostly been white men and they've mostly been 20 years older than me. And I remember sitting in those rooms for years, being very quiet and not sure what my place was. I guess my advice is be in those rooms. Don't be turned away from those rooms because you look like you don't belong or you look like you're different. Get into the room, build your confidence. What you say has worth, what you believe has worth, what you think has worth and deserves to be spoken about and told. The thing we're constantly judged on as producers is our taste, right? It's a large piece to what makes us success is what we believe in and what we put our money into and how we produce that show. And so I believe that people who have taste can run the gamut of age, of economic background, of color of skin, and of representation, and have that confidence in your taste and get into that room and speak your mind. Now more than ever, because as my colleagues have been saying, the door is now open. The world has changed. We are moving forward. We are not moving back. And different and representative voices and tastes and ideas are actually more welcome than they've ever been. And now's the moment to speak freely about them. And I think if I had one piece of advice that I wish was given to me way back when was I can do it too. I might look different. My bank account may be different. My track record may look a lot different, but I actually have it in me to do. And so do you. So does everyone out there sitting there wishing to be a Broadway producer one day. You have it in you. You have to find your lane of what you believe in and what you feel and what you think and put it out there for others. Because I assure you there's an audience for your way of thinking and believing and feeling.
What would you have said to a younger you, Aaliyah?
I have lots of morsels of advice here, but I think that one of the things that I pound the table about in terms of just producing is to figure out, and I've heard Eva say this too, to figure out what that source of income is going to be. If your show is in a state when it is not making money yet. And for anyone that's even thought about producing, that's up until the point that your show recoups and you're in profit. I mean, the producer's the last one paid. So think about how you would structure your career so that you can be in the theater, that you can be working in the theater without necessarily having a show that's up and making money and paying for you to live. And then you can think about how you are going to produce your work. And I give that advice because I feel like a lot of people think that, oh, I can be a producer and that's a career that I can have and I can, feed my family and sustain myself doing that. And I would suggest that it is a feast or famine opportunity producing when your show is not running, you're not making money. And so figure out what other kinds of revenue streams will actually feed you while you are working on this thing that this event that you're creating for the stage. And so I always give that advice because I feel like it will give you a lot more peace of mind in building that foundation to get to the place where you have the confidence to go and do all of these other wonderful things, raise the money, bring together the company that's going to sustain something successful, set out to tour a show, hire all of the kinds of people that you want to see working on a show, hire outside of the industry, which we haven't traditionally done in this industry, but creating opportunity for people that might have a new way of looking at approaching new audiences, or a new way of looking at publicizing a show. So all of that, I think, rests on a foundation of being comfortable in yourself and having your own sustainability before you reach that point. And I say that because I feel like oftentimes our industry doesn't talk about that, and in any role that you're in on Broadway, that is always a challenge. Creating that self-sustaining scenario, whether you're on the stage, off the stage, understanding how you're going to continue to sustain yourself is often the foundation of anything that you're going to be doing. And I think that's one of the challenges for the industry, ultimately, women, men, all of us, that it's very much set up. It's very much set up for the long running musical. And in the event that you're not in that long running musical, where you have a lot more of the agency, what do you do? And how do you craft a life for yourself where you can be a part of the community as opposed to not? So I think that's ultimately one of the questions, challenges that we have to tackle in order to make this community one that's sustaining for all of us.
Maria, what's one of the biggest impediments to women and women of color and women broadly to having success in the world of theater, in your view?
It's there are a lot of things, unfortunately.
Where do we start, right?
I know exactly. Where do we start? I actually wanted to go back. Is it okay if I answer the question about what I would?
Absolutely.
Because one of the things that you both were saying, Aaliyah and Eva, were really was really sort of getting a rise out of me. And the thing that I guess I keep thinking about is it doesn't need to look like it's looked like. I thought that artistic directorship looked like the people who I had worked for. And I really, before I got this job, I really was like, I'm going to go work for an NGO, or I'm good at diplomacy. Like, I deal with artists all the time. I can go, do disaster relief or foreign service or something like that. I thought maybe I should just go do something else, because I looked at the sacrifices that I would have to make to be in that C-suite. And I thought to myself, that's not worth it to me. And what I realized over time, and I'm still realizing this, is that my way doesn't have to look like the way that I was taught. I can take that and I can actually reshape it and mold it around me and what I care about. And that for me is connected to this impediment question. For me, that was a huge impediment. Like, it was a huge impediment because I thought to myself, I don't want to be a shark. I'm not a shark. I don't like being a shark. Everybody who goes into the business and that kind of stuff or whatever has to be able to be a shark. I'm like, I like people. I don't want to do that. That's not interesting to me. I don't want to, that's not fun. And I thought, well, okay, so maybe I can just take a step forward and sort of see how my way would be and try to continue to listen to my gut around that. And it's hard. It is hard because all around me are freaking sharks. People, right? So
it's true. It's true in every realm of business too. One of you talked about something that led me to think about allies, because as we've been talking about, racial justice, social justice, and certainly in this case, talking about women moving forward, we certainly don't want to do it, without allies, right? And in many cases, there are men who want to be a part of this fight, who see the need for change. Aletha, I see you nodding your head there. So what do we do? How do women join men in this effort, in this fight, and to make them part of the move forward to give women more equity?
A few things. I think, first off, educate yourself, right? Because we do need allies, or accomplices, as we call them. We do need you. But you have to educate yourself. I think the hardest part for me in the beginning of the pandemic and Black Lives Matter was all the questions about, well, what do we do? Are you okay? How can we help? And it was just like, read a book. Like, it gets frustrating at a certain point because you want to help because you want people to help you, right? But you have to take that initiative, and you do have to make sure that you educate yourself. And there's so many resources out there. There's so many books and websites and groups that we all mentioned here today. There's so many ways to educate yourself. So that's, I think, first things first. But also, I think, as far as men are concerned, listen when women speak and make sure that you're creating space for the women in your organization at that table, right? I also think it's really important for women to take the lead in their organizations. Even if you're not in a leadership role, it's totally fine to create an ERG group or make suggestions. The worst they could say is no, and you continue to learn from those things and you repeat. I think listening is probably, the biggest thing that sticks out in my head. I can't think about how many times I was in a boardroom and my words were not heard. But, someone else would say the same exact thing. And it was, oh my God, what a great idea, Bob. So I just think about those moments and the opportunities that we've had in those moments to just like close our mouths and open our ears and really listen. I tell my husband that all the time. And he still hasn't quite gotten it, but we're working on him. But I just think that, listening is so, 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 so important. And creating that space for women and for people of color to have a seat at that table is extremely important.
I think we might have lost Deborah. So I'm going to just answer that question that she had before. Because, one of the things I was thinking about is when she asked what was the biggest impediment to women of color, one of the things that I feel like we don't really talk about is how anti-Blackness and how real it is. And for me in the Latino community, I walk through the world really different with a lot of privilege compared to my darker brothers and sisters in my community. And it is, I think that part of this conversation around Black, Indigenous, and artists of color, people of color, et cetera, is for me, if you put me, I'm in the people of color category, right? But so you hire a lot of people who look like me, you're not actually getting at the heart of centering folks who are the most marginalized in our industry and have been the most marginalized in our country, right? And so this is the thing that I want to sort of bring up or talk about also as that impediment is that for me, from my seat, I've got to figure out how to continually center the folks who are most overlooked, the folks who are don't walk through the world with that privilege, because anti-Blackness is real. It is real, and it is real on Broadway, no question.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Maria. And I'll just add that by saying, I'm on the board of the Black Theater Coalition, and there's a lot of work that they're doing, obviously. But one thing I want to talk about specifically is that fellowship program. And Aaliyah, if I'm not mistaken, you and Stephen are also doing a fellowship program, and we need as many as we can get, just so I'm crystal clear about that. But
Woolie's got one.
Oh, awesome. That is great, Maria. I think the point there is, though, that not only does talent already exist, we just have to find it, right? We have to make sure we're looking in the right places, but also we have to nurture the up and coming talent. And how best to do that, but with these fellowship programs. So if you can't get involved financially, get involved physically, become that mentor, that teacher, that organization that can bring a fellow on board. It is so, 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 so very important.
I hear this statement a lot. It's not maybe a question, but it's a statement of, well, I tried, I looked, I tried to hire outside a white guy. I tried, I put ads up, I interviewed, I really did. I guess my advice to those people, including myself, is keep trying, because people are out there. People want to work in our business. People want to work in producers' offices and on shows. They just aren't necessarily first and foremost obvious because of economic backgrounds, internships, because often they don't pay. And a lot of wealthier kids are the ones that get to come to New York and live there and be interns. I think it was Maria who said it's not a pipeline issue, which I don't disagree with you on, but I believe it's an access issue, right? So there are pools upon pools of diverse talent out there in the world, but the path from here to there is the issue. And so whatever we can do to grow that channel, to open our eyes, to continue the work, to find the next generation of BIPOC artists and producers and company managers and ad executives, that's the work we need to be worried about. That's the work we need to be doing. And that's the work we can't stop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So cool.
Amen.
Everybody.
Welcome back, Deborah.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I am so embarrassed. It's Zoom embarrassment, everyone. I apologize. This is like the ultimate now in embarrassment, right? When you lose your Wi-Fi at home. I'm not sure what happened, but we were on a great roll, and I just want to thank you all. Fortunately, we had made it through most of it, and I think we were just starting to wrap up. So this has just been an invigorating discussion, and I think one that's long overdue, and one I think we're all so happy to have. Aletha Stevens, Aaliyah Jones-Harvey, Maria Manuela Goyanes, Tali Pellman, and Eva Price, thank you all so very much for your knowledge, for your enthusiasm, and most of all for your resolve to make life better and to just get things rolling on Broadway after this intermission. So thank you all so much. Have a great day, and happy Zooming.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you so
for doing
much
such a great
to
job.
everyone.
Nice seeing you.
Thank you.
Nice
Bye-bye.
seeing everybody.
Bye.